Hey YouTube. So I wanted to talk today about femininity and masculinity, and particularly masculinity as it's embodied by trans masculine folks. So I was recently at a feminist discussion group, and one of the participants brought up bell hooks and how in her writing she talks about a difference between patriarchal masculinity and masculinity. And I think that this is a really important difference to make because it allows us an opportunity to talk about masculinity and embody masculinity in ways that are anti-oppressive. And I'm bringing this up and I'm thinking about it because of a recent experience that I had. So I was entering a new space, and this space happened to be specifically transmasculine, and two of the guys started engaging in really misogynistic dialogue, talking about this woman and like the clothes she was wearing and her underwear and her breasts, and like it would be conversation that I would consider to be locker room talk, and it was really misogynistic. And I felt uncomfortable for two main reasons. The first reason being that I don't think that misogyny is ever okay. Like, I don't think that misogyny is acceptable behavior for cisgendered males. And so, just because these people were transmasculine or FM, that didn't make their behavior any more okay. However, because I was new to this space and because it was a transmasculine space, I was being read as male and was thus being afforded a type of male privilege and was being invited to join in on their conversation. However, I felt that there wasn't any space for me to say that I was uncomfortable, to call them out on their behavior, to say what I thought wasn't cool. I felt that there wasn't any space for me to say that I was a feminist, and I also felt uncomfortable expressing my own femininity. I felt like if I did, then I wouldn't be read as, the right kind of guy or whatever, and that I wouldn't be like trans enough. The second thing, which made me think about why transmasculine folks might embody a really oppressive type of masculinity. There's already pressure in our society, in our overall society, to embody masculinity in ways that are oppressive. Masculinity in and of itself is already in a pretty fragile state. Like, you're constantly having to be masculine, to prove your manhood or man it up, or like just prove that you're man enough. And you already have to deal with this if you're already born male bodied. So I think that for people who are born female bodied, there's extra pressure, to be as masculine or as male or more. However, I think this has three really problematic consequences. The first being that, we start engaging in this behavior or taking on, new behaviors, and we don't stop and think about where it's coming from, and we don't stop always and look at the patriarchal or sexist roots of these behaviors. That's the first one. The second being that we don't see the effect that it has on ourselves, which I think has to do mostly with how we talk about the female bodies. And I think that as transmasculine folks, there is a lot of aversion to the female body, and there's a lot of really negative dialogue surrounding the female body, whether you're talking about your own or someone else's. And I think that this adds to the dysphoria that we already feel, and it keeps you from enjoying parts of your body that you might otherwise, because something that you might like is, already instantly labeled as repulsive or negative or weak. And this, I think, really distances us from our bodies, limits us from enjoying things that we might otherwise, and adds, it's not only misogynistic, but it also adds to our dysphoria. And the third thing that I find problematic is that there tends to be, or what I perceive to be, a disregard for femininity as well, which I think comes from the fact that we try really hard to distance ourselves from being female or being feminine so that we're not read as women. But I think that this results in a disregard for femininity in and of itself. And this has been something that I've struggled with because I identify as femme or as a feminine person. And I think that it took me longer to work through a lot of gender stuff because I didn't perceive there to be any space to be femme in F to M spaces, or I didn't see any conversations about being feminine in transmasculine spaces. So I didn't think that there was any way for me to have my gender and also be trans. I felt, and looking back on it, I felt really silenced. So, I mean, overall, what I would like to see is that there be more of a feminist analysis within the transmasculine experience. And I know that you don't have to be a feminist in order to be F to M, and I understand that, feminism and being trans are two separate things, but I think that it's something to really consider, especially for people who are just starting to be read as male, or for people who are taking on more masculine behaviors. Things such as I'm not going to act feminine, or I now, because I'm being read as male or I'm trans, like I can't talk about my feelings, or I can't cry, or if there's extra pressure to be aggressive or competitive or like loud, or sit with my legs spread on the bus or whatever, taking on those new behaviors, I think that you really have to stop and take a step back and think about, why am I doing this? Where is it coming from? Does this have any effect on my internalized sense of self? And does this have any effect on the people around me? The people around you being, other trans people, being female-bodied people, being women. And what I would really like to see is more of a trans-masculine movement that focuses on becoming feminist men. I would like to see more discussion around that. And I mean, I really think that all gender identities should have a feminist perspective. It's not something that's particularly transmasculine. But I do think that we really need to think more about the ways that our genders affect other people. So, yeah, that's what I had to say. And I'm super into feedback and comments and discussions and all that stuff. And yeah, talk to you later. Bye.